series of seminars we've got. Will Garrod here today from R2M, and he's talking about one of their products that they put in for the Innovation this award earlier this year. It's got quite a name on it, the R2M 3S GSM controlled battery-powered static valve actuator. Great name there, Will, but I'll let you explain it. If you've got any questions, please save them to the end, and if we can ask us all to go on mute, which I think most of us are. Will, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello everybody, first webinar for me, so please bear with me. I'll try and make this as slick as possible. It'll take about 20 minutes to go through the slides. But first of all, I'm going to make you sit through 2 slides about our company. Some key facts. We're incorporated in 2003, so we're 17 years young. We were acquired by the Havler Austria Group in December last year, so last Christmas, so we're now part of a much, much bigger entity. And we've grown organically. We're not into the bank for finance. There's a lot of businesses finding out at the moment. You're reliant on lots of finance for growth. You hit a pandemic or an event like we've got now, and incomes drop, but your finance payments stay the same. Of course, that's really helped us to have grown in a nice, responsible and sustainable way that we have. Stock-wise, we've got lots and lots of stock. We've got demonstrator fittings up to 1,000 mil. Encapsulation collars up to 1280, that's 48-inch in stock now. So if you needed one of those at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can come straight out of stock. We've introduced 14 innovative products in the 16 of those 17 years, so we're well into bringing new things along. We have a 24/7 emergency service, and like I just said, if it's in stock, we can get it to you. And our on-site technical people are on call all the time. So typically, any of our more complicated and new things, if you need someone to come and show you how to put it together or get it working, we can send someone to do that. Now, here's a chronological timeline of those innovations. 50% of those are our own inventions, things that we've developed, invented, sometimes patented. The other 50% are things from long-standing partnerships where recognised things exist in other countries that are needed over here. A couple are joint ventures, like that camera system that we've just launched. We created the launching apparatus. The camera system already existed and it was very good, so that's a good joint venture. Okay, that's the plug of the company. Let's go to the main event now. So, smart networks, calm networks, optimized networks. We hear those terms every day. But you can't realise them without the apparatus to control your network. There's lots of software and lots of reporting and forecasting tools out there, but you can't do much about what they tell you if you can't control your network with some form of hardware. Example, somewhere in this field is a valve that you could use to control your network. If it was in a treatment plant, you've probably got a 400-volt actuator available to control it. But if it's out in the middle of the field, the cost can be prohibitive. Just getting power to it could be 20, 50, 100,000 pounds. And then communication, how are you going to talk to it? So 3S actuators enable you to dig a little hole around that valve by hand, attach it to it, set it up, and you're away. You have control remotely from then on. So I feel like I've just told you everything, but a bit more about them. They are retrofittable to anything with a spindle, gearbox. Doesn't matter if it's 300 turns at low torque or 13 turns at high torque. The device will handle it, calculate it itself, and work with it. It's fully self-contained. It's actually IP68 rated, so it can sit in water. It's battery powered, as I've said before, so there's no supply needed from the network, from the national grid. It communicates with the mobile phone system. So if you can take a smartphone to it and put it down where your antenna will be and get mobile phone signal, it will work, and we'll help verify that when you come to it. Now it can perform multiple functions, so not just a fully open to close or close to open. If if you need it to dynamically move 30%, 20% to control pressure and flow downstream, it can cope with that. Now it reports back to you on torque, the turns needed, position, battery health. The torque's an important one because if it's a 12-inch valve and it needed 300 Newton meters for the last operation to actually turn it, then that valve's probably got something wrong with it. Valves are like we are. If you sit still and don't move for a long time, they get stiff and ultimately jam. So the torque, the way that it reports you the torque needed is very good because you can then tell it that evening or that night, in the middle of the night, to exercise itself 3 cycles, in which case then on the 3rd cycle it's usually gone from, say, 300 or 400 Newton meters down to 150 just by virtue of the fact it's been cycled. It always reports on the turns needed, turns asked for and needed. So if it's a 13-turn valve, for instance, and it was closing at 12.5, there might be something in the way. There might be an obstruction. It'll always tell you its end position and its battery health. So it'll tell you when I have 30% left, for instance. So it's clever in what it tells you with each operation. Now the battery is a rechargeable unit and you can swap it out for a fully charged one in 5 minutes. Okay, so in our network there's virtually 0 buried valves. And I don't know if buried is spelled wrong there, I hope I got that wrong. But today we haven't got many buried valves at all. And the new challenges of the AMBER especially mean we've got to be more efficient, reduce our OPEX, operate automatic shutoffs for burst mitigation, control zones or DMAs for leak detection, reduce energy consumption. We can manage stagnant water where our KSVs are, our heat shut valves, and easily replace the top on that for a triangular one to manage that. We can set them off on a system of exercising themselves. So let's say you've got 100 of these, you can exercise them, under a program, so you know that they're always going to be vision free. You can manage your attachment and draw off the res, for instance, and calm networks, smart networks. You can truly do that with this device. And of course, another one out on the crime and terrorism. Of course, you can tell it in an instant to shut something if an incident is going on, all remotely. There's also the automatic rezoning, so you can appreciate about resilience. That seems like quite a long list. Excuse me. Right, the installation itself. It's 100%. Well, I say 100% retrofit. You can fit it onto a new valve. You put it in straight away. But you can mount onto any bare shaft, a spindle, dolly, gearbox, or you can mount it onto an F10 or 14 type flange mount. It's typically on a valve that you intended to actuate in the first place. It has a composite lid to the chamber. The reason is it's got an antenna sticking out, just like your mobile phone used to have. And to get the signal out, you can't really get signal out of a metal lid. If you have to have a D400 lid, for instance, it's made of ductile iron, you can sight the antenna outside. So if you've got a post that you own that you can use a few meters away, you can do that. So it is possible. I'm not exactly sure how far the cable can be. You can remotely fit the antenna. Okay, I'm going to show you a video which is actually gas. So there you go. Those sensors are saying pressure within permissible levels. Those sensors are actually powered by the battery. Okay, dropped a bit, but still within permissible levels. I think it was about to say below permissible levels. So it's now telling its operator, its owner, I'm shutting off because pressure has dropped below permissible levels. So before someone's had to look at the screen and say, hang on, there's something wrong over there, that's going to be recorded. So it's automated function of local. And here we go again, it's it's looking at where the pressure is higher one side than the other, so it's told you which shaft and told you which shafts, etc. Let's do that one, I think. Okay, a little bit more about them. It's a rechargeable battery. I'm sure we're dying to ask us. Typically a year to 2 years, however, depending on how long or how often you're using. You can exchange the batteries in minutes, and on our demonstration vehicle, we have a battery and a unit on wheels on like a trolley, and we disconnect that battery on and off every time we display it. We don't bother to turn anything off, we just slam the cables in every time it works fine. And every time we can call up our colleague, who could be 100 miles away, and say, can you shut the demo valve 30%, 100%, something like that, and through the smartphone and send the instructions to do that. So they're very, very robust and work very well. Now there's potential for photovoltaic charging, solar power charging using our laser booster cabinet. It's that cabinet at the bottom, which will produce in the depths of winter about 50 watt hours. We've got 5 or 6 hours of daylight, so it's more than enough to keep that trickle charge. So in theory, this is still just been finished now. In theory, instead of having to go to perhaps once a year or once every 2 years to change the battery, that could sit there forever and just report back to you and say, my battery's good. I'm at 95% charged. So that would be great. The SCADA integration, that was probably the biggest challenge of all with the first few that we sold. Because bolting into the top of the valve was quite easy, but having the water company's own system, communicate with it, involved more than one department, and it was challenging, but in every case we got there in the end. And then we found that the second unit was 5 to 10 minutes to switch on and link up, and quite easy to do. So that's kind of just to summarise the benefits, you've got flow control from your own control centre. Retrofitting without a chamber, what we mean there, I suppose, is that it doesn't have to be a valve that's already in a chamber. You're going to build a very small chamber to put the device in, but it's not, you haven't got to have a chamber at the start with. There is no data cable, it's runs from the mobile phone system. No grid connection, and you can add sensors to it to enable you to tell itself what to do, and use the communication system and the battery itself to run those sensors. So there's added benefit there that you may not feel. Okay, this is a case study that we have permission to share. This was a very challenging. This is the second of two, this particular one, but they had 2 reservoirs that needed balancing. In the summer, they had to go there 3 times a day. It was across a very, very busy dual carriageway, and it was reported as a near miss every time. So, your network technician had to go across that dual carriageway with his valve key into the limit. And then he was only a couple of metres away from the lorries screaming past him. So these were put in. The first one was easy, hand dug, took a little bit of time to get the communication set up done. But the second one, as you can see there, we've got grass around it. It wasn't a very big hole. We put together very, very easy communication set up easily as well. Mostly because it's the second time. I think that would be the case with any number one communication will be difficult. From there on, they'll be easy to connect up to. But they are very, very happy with that. That's whizzing away. We anticipate, even with quite heavy usage on that one, battery life of over a year. But going out to that once a year to swap the battery is ever so much cheaper than sending someone across that busy dual carriageway 2 or 3 times a day. I think that is the last slide. So at the end of my presentation, ready for any questions.
Thanks, Will. I really appreciate that. I always think of it, it's like one of those obvious ideas like an iPhone where everything existed before, but actually when you pull it all together, it makes a massive difference to what you've got. And that's the first thing I thought when I saw your product. It was like, wow, you've got an actuator, a GSM and a battery. But none of us actually thought of putting it all together. So Brilliant. Some questions on the right. We've got just type them in as we're going through the questions. But first one's from Jamie. Hi Will, what's the charging time of the battery and its anticipated life based on number of charges, please?
I'll help you with that one, Will.
Yeah, help me with that, please.
Don't worry. Hi, Jamie. It's Julia. So a very, very good question. The normal time to recharge the battery is around 1.5 hours. So you're very quick in having it fully charged. What we normally say is, and for example, the case study that Will's shown about Anglian, they have a separate battery in their depot and then keep one that's charged all the time. So we recommend whenever you have, you know, X amount per depot, then still one battery per depot is enough, because within 1.5 hours it's fully charged again. You go out and just change it and then take the other one back. It's fully rechargeable and charge it. And 3S has, they have a kind of a life cycle performance chart of the battery. And they say after 500 charging cycles, the battery has only, or the capacity of the battery has only dropped by 20%. So after 500 times of charging it, you're still at 80% of the battery. So that gives you a really, really long lifetime of the battery, and thereby using the actuator. If that answers your question, let me know. Otherwise, I'm happy to discuss this a bit further, of course.
Brilliant. Thanks, Julia.
Thanks, Julia. That's Julia Sterling, who also works for R2M, who's with Will today as well. Another question from myself. Well, we're waiting for others to come in. Have you had much reproach from the likes of systems thinking and smart networks? Because that to me is the obvious, where we're going into automated systems. This is where it's going to come into itself, and it's more. I don't know, is that better from yourself, Will, or to Julia?
I think I'm part of the answer, Julia. Initially, the interest came from just challenging valves in difficult and dangerous places, but people rapidly seem to be waking up to the idea that there's a lot more benefit to be had from this networks. Dynamic controls.
Exactly, yeah. So at the moment, to give you an idea about that as well, we're in discussion with different utilities, and we have, to give you an example, we have United Utilities deploying 6 of these over the course of the next months. Yorkshire's been among the forefront of them as well, and they'll put 34 in the ground over the course of the next year. I can't say months here because that's going to take some time. And we're discussing a more of a smart integration concept also with Anglian and others. It's just about, it's not just one thing that the actuator can do, but it's basically giving you the chance to connect it to whatever telemetry you have in your system already, to connect it to whatever input data you receive, whether that is any kind of flow sensors that you have, any pressure sensors, or whether that's any dependencies that you want to create within your network. Let's say they're even going that far in other countries. I think it's Australia, they're working at the moment for weather forecast sensors. So basically a sensor that can forecast the weather up to 2 days roughly is connected to the battery, to the actuator, and then basically gives the system the input that, you know, my sensor forecasts it's going to start raining a lot in 2-3 days. So empty out that storage tank, that we have enough room to keep all the rain, and in order to also mitigate any floods and any overflowing of the existing storage tanks, to kind of get those drained over the next couple of days until the rain hits in. And then that sensor kind of automatically makes the actuator act upon whatever data the sensor gets. And that kind of is the way of how you can make the system even smarter. And with those 2 case studies that we have already implemented for Anglian, for example, they're also thinking about how they can bring those to the next level within the already implemented system, but how can they make these actuators that they have in the ground already, you know, communicate more and integrate them more into the overall system. So that's really something on a case-by-case discussion, because there are so many different possibilities that you have.
Thank you. Any other questions from people? There's not many coming up on the typing on the side, but if you want to speak out, shout now.
I like to think that was my presentations are thorough. So that's the reason the questions are not coming in.
Okay, we'll probably leave it there today then. But thanks, Will, and thanks, Julia, for giving us a great presentation. I know it's just one of probably a dozen or so product lines you've got, and Will keeps on inventing more and more in his garage in the back there. But he's like the Willison Gromit of R2M, but doing brilliant stuff. Thanks for your time, and see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Cheers.